The Shipibo people are known for the way they think about and work with plants in a spiritual way, but it's actually kind of their whole cosmovision. I mean, all indigenous peoples have a cosmovision. In fact, all peoples have a cosmovision. It's just a term to describe a kind of worldview, that different groups of people have. And what's included in that worldview is like their understandings of the universe, the origins of the universe, the structure and relationship of the universe to this material reality, the different levels of the world in the spiritual sense, and how we interrelate with these different aspects of our existence, not just our physical existence, but also these non-physical realms. And so the Shipibo is not just plants. They have a cosmovision that incorporates an understanding about the origins of the universe and the creator and the moon and the sun and the sky and the earth and the water. And they, I think all Indigenous people, or at least most Indigenous people, have an animistic view about those things, that there are spirits that are representing those different aspects of existence, or that are associated with. They have this idea of the Ebo, which is the owner spirit of the particular teacher plants. So, in their understanding of plants and working with plants, for medicinal purposes as well as shamanic purposes, and they are distinct, or they overlap, but they're separate considerations. They talk about the teacher plants having an Ebo, which is like a mother protector, or can be father protector as well. So they will perceive the spirit of a location as well, for example. So it can be like the spirit of a lake, or the spirit of the waterfall, or the spirit of the jungle. What's challenging in looking at these historical legends is that the Shipibo people are actually pretty dispersed geographically. So they didn't have a city center. They lived along the Ucayali River, which is a large tributary of the Amazon River, running from the southern part of Peru in the central east, and it goes up to Pucallpa. And then it goes further up to Iquitos. It finishes before Iquitos. The geographic structure of the land there, or the waters there, there's this principal river, the Ucayali, and all these little tributaries coming off it. And so the Shipibo tribes lived along these tributaries. They didn't have a central city. So they have modified versions of their legends. This is such an important point about the Shipibo people. Because they didn't have principal centers, and because they were living in the heart of the largest, richest, most vigorous rainforest in the world by far, they were difficult to overcome. The Incas couldn't overcome them. I don't think they even tried. The conquistadors didn't come into their territory, really. The Jesuit priests were pretty unlucky with trying to establish missionaries there. The Franciscans lost 129 friars to the Shipibo people, them aggressively killing them when they went into those areas. And the colonialists, which came more from the Brazilian side, it took them a while to get to that area. And even now, it's not well developed at all. So the Shipibo people kind of moved up and down this river system and probably leveraged the presence of the Franciscans in the south and the colonialists coming from the north, and for tools and resources. But they didn't accept their domination. They weren't ruled by them. And therefore, they were able to preserve their culture, their traditions, their language, in a way that I question whether it exists anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some places in Africa there's still,
But no,
but
because if you look at what happened in the Congo, which is, I think, less than half the size of the Amazon rainforest,
yeah,
the Portuguese, the Belgians, and the French were pretty active at the slave trade and at,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
just like ripping resources out of there. So,
hmm
I mean, when the colonialists came into the Brazilian area, that part of the Amazon River, where there were more complex structured societies, rainforest,
hmm
indigenous societies, they decimated them.
hmm
They just completely destroyed them, or they overran them, or enslaved them, so that
hmm
they lost their culture. But I was looking for other examples of peoples who have a rich culture and tradition that haven't been overrun by the colonialists or the different factions coming in. And I haven't found any other examples yet, but I haven't done a huge amount of research.
yeah. It's pretty amazing.
And I think it's central to why we're talking about them today. These what they offer to humanity today, in terms of an understanding of how to live in harmonious relationship with nature, how to be in balance, how to, this for them is an innate understanding.
It's a big reason why I chose, maybe not chose, but stuck with this medicine. Because, I mean, there's psychedelics everywhere now. But that knowledge that's been held by the people that we sit with is a big reason of why I haven't gone in a different direction of psychedelic use. Because, like, we get people all the time who've done, I don't know what it is, MDMA and all these different, and they're using psychiatrists from the Western world, but it's like they don't have 4,000 years of knowledge. So that was a big reason for me to stick with this medicine. And the knowledge wasn't broken. Like you can go do, what's the cactus? Peyote. But all of those people have been westernized by now.
Yeah, I think like we have to be careful not to say they've been totally westernized, because those people are proud of their culture and their traditions and
Mm-hmm.
trying to protect them, right? But yeah, I feel like the impact of the West has been enormous on most indigenous cultures, whereas this interesting group of people in the heart of the most amazing natural resource that we have on the planet still have this amazing tradition that we can access personally. We can directly experience their cosmovision through drinking ayahuasca and so much more, as we know, with the
And
dieta.
dieting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the dieta.
Why do you think they share it with us?
Good question. And my first thought is, I doubt they share everything with us.
No, but share at all.
Well, from your own experience with the Shipibo people, I'm sure you would agree that they're pretty good at doing business.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
like if you think about the Amazon rainforest, and you can see this in the plant life too, you have to be pretty adaptable. You have to be pretty vigorous to survive, So they're adaptable. They use what's available to them, and they don't have, like I said, they don't have that like strong kind of hierarchical society with like large numbers of people that holds them locked in certain ways of being. So I think that they and they're sweet, you know. I think that they,
Very sweet.
yeah, I think that they want to share parts that don't feel to them like sacred secrets, you know.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when you start this path and you there's all sorts of stories. So you hear the stories of like the plants told them to, or maybe even like I've heard like savior, like they're trying to save the West in a way, or like trying to preserve some form of, and I was just wondering if there's any truth to that. Those stories you hear when you first start
Like
down this path.
you mean like
Like
the eagle and the
we're
condor, that sort of stuff.
we have to share this medicine with them because they're so sick that they need it in a way to kind of break the way that we're traveling down this path, the Western societies.
Yeah, I wonder. I haven't. I mean, I think that's sort of an idea of this like passionate altruism is definitely more of a Western idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that these people have lived for, well, we think about what we know about how long this tribe has existed. The estimates are like almost 3,000 years. Like they're thought to be Pano people who came down from Brazil. That their focus has been just living, you know, like living in nature, like fishing and gathering fruit and trying to live as abundantly as possible and as harmoniously as possible, you know, in a natural way. Like it's their cosmovision is innate to their life, to their way of living. It's not like a separate studied thing, and that their tradition is oral, right? So it's passed from, you know, father to son, mother to daughter, in like kind of general conversations. So I don't know if they, you know, like, I think for sure Christianity has been infused somewhat into their tradition, you know. So these altruistic ideas about saving, of being saved, you know, being in good relationship with God. I don't want to suggest that they didn't have that idea of being in right relationship with God anyway, but just like the zeal that comes with the Christian history, I think is quite different to what you see with the Shipibo people.
It also comes to mind the medicine, in a way, forces you to start helping people that are sick regardless. So that might be part of their culture, just if people need help.
To help them. Yeah, exactly.
To help them.
Well, so this is an interesting, where you think about how did healing work for the Shipibo people, and how are we experiencing that today as a continuation? So the shaman is a special person, a special agent of knowledge, of plant medicines, and of spiritual information, if you like, or access to the spiritual world. It's not that every person in the tribe is a shaman. It was a special kind of position. And the knowledge for how to acquire understanding of shamanic practices and medicine practices was passed in families. And so to heal a person may require herbal treatments, herbal remedies, and it might be like ingesting plants, or it might be topically applied, or it might be baths with flowers, or vapor, you know, from the steam for the respiratory system, or even just kind of the energy of the person. And the shaman's view of health is, I think there's like this diffuse boundary between the physical reality and the energetic reality. It feels like every aspect of their life, there's not like these hard boundaries. They don't have like these strong categorizations of what's real, what's imaginary, what's plant medicine versus spiritual medicine. what's a like whatever relationships, human relationships, all sorts of things. It's like what's good and what's bad. Like their whole culture it's more diffuse, it feels.
I hate this saying, but it's because I hear it all the time. It is what it is. I've noticed that when you ask Arturo, or it's kind of just that's it. Like, what are you guys looking for more than
We analyze.
like they speak very matter of factly. Like, no, this is what I saw, and that's what you have, and here's how we heal it. But there's no like separation between our physical and that world that we get to see when we open.
Yeah, I think this coming together of our culture with their culture is inspiring those that work continuously with Westerners to kind of understand our way of seeing things and bring that into their world as well. I mean, actually, we could talk for a long time about how this latest wave of interest in their medicine tradition, and not just them, but the whole Amazonian area, the indigenous medicine traditions, how that's another thing which is kind of like causing them to shift and adapt and having an impact on their culture. Yeah, but we can go into that another day. Just like how they're being paid to administer shamanic practices, ceremonial rituals, where there's not like a huge curiosity and desire to really understand the complexity, the full complexity of their knowledge about the jungle, about life, about living in harmony with life, about an existence where there aren't those hard boundaries. Like there's so much to learn there, and sometimes I feel a little bit concerned that with the Western interest in ayahuasca and this kind of passionate call for maestros to go and work in places where they're just administering ayahuasca to lots of groups, that those people who otherwise would be like the knowledge keepers and who would be really invested in the fullness of their dieta practice in their home villages and so on, is being lost or at least diluted and affected in some way. The diversity of life in the Amazon, as well as the poor soils, like they don't have a lot of nutrition in them.
They're awful. Yeah.
Because constantly being buffeted with rain, right?
Yeah.
Has meant that the plants and the animals have evolved with really kind of like aggressive ways of surviving, either like making themselves very, very poisonous or other sorts of really intense defenses.
Yeah, if you sit for 15 minutes and stare at the jungle, it is a war. Like, that place is eating itself constantly.
Absolutely.
Everything's just turning back to dirt, and then the dirt is being eaten by the plants, and there's just nothing safe in the... And it's not even the big animals. It's like you throw an apple on the ground and the ants know and the termites know, and it's gone. It's amazing. And I think that's because it's so good at life. That's why you get so much deep healing. Like, it's the perfect temperature. It's the perfect everything for life. So when I went down there the last time, I took a small diet, but it's kind of, a 9-day diet. But I really noticed how healing the jungle is in my body on its own. Not even with
the
medicine,
ceremonies or diet,
just the air, the temperature,
the aromas of the plants,
the aromas. I really felt my body loosen just arriving to a safe place in the jungle.
Yeah, I do. I experience the same thing every time I go.
Yeah,
the first few.
It's like Perfect.
it actually makes me feel ill the first couple of days when I get there. I feel like a lot of toxins leave my body, a lot of like wound up stress, and then this infusion of medicine from every direction. Just the jungle, it's constant breathing, living self, just like wraps itself around you and just like takes you into its embrace, you know. And after a few days, I feel so much healthier. You're right. I don't even have to have ceremony or dieta to just feel health.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I really feel in these cities that we live in too is cut off from the stars and the wonder of the world. So that was the biggest thing for me the first time down there, and the medicine had a lot to do with this too. Is like it re-sparked the joy of wonder in my life.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And look at the stars and now I tend to like just dream about my ideas of that stuff instead of going into the scientific research. I like to like play that game of these people didn't do science, but they understood it in their way. And I really enjoy doing that when I just in anything.
Yeah, it's like the analysis and the classifying of everything is like it's our way of understanding things in the West, but it steals the
Magic?
magic, yeah, the experience of it. It steals the spirit of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when you read about some of the myths of the Shipibo people, and for them, most of these myths are not myths; they're like just true happenings. They're all about these wonderful or wondrous, sometimes not wonderful, sometimes they're kind of scary things that have happened between people in the jungle or spirits in the jungle. So there's, you know, this quality of wonder that you're talking about there in their history. You know, stories about the Incas or particular spirits of the Inca that came and taught them things. Or stories about talking birds, or stories about Muraya. They talk about this, the old shamans who knew how to transform themselves and become flying beings. Or stories about the stairway that connects the earth realm to the sky. There's this quality of wonder to them, which is not something they need enticing to enter into. That energetic world that we talked about. When you get to the jungle, you feel yourself kind of entering into the life interconnectivity there. Well, with the dieta practice and also just being around that energy of dieta, like you can feel the energy of dieta when somebody else is in dieta, that communities or families of people could have these powerful collective experiences in the energetic or spiritual realm that felt very physically real.
Is a dream real or not? Because for me, dreaming is just as real as this life. And if you look into like, are we living in this illusion, then the dream may be just as real as this one.
For me, on this topic, I start to get like some little concerned thoughts come up. Like you see a lot of people entering into consumption of hallucinogenics, entheogens, who become pretty lost.
Oh, yeah.
They get pretty ungrounded and they can get obsessed with these ideas of becoming some sort of enlightened flying being, you know. And I think there's an avoidance of this physical experience there. And I feel like a lot of the healing that's come to me from treatment and dieta in the Shipibo way has been for my physical life, for my real life, my real relationships, like how I sleep, how I wake up, and what I choose to do, how I interact with people and what choices I make for my work or my play or my social life. Like, they're very tangible, practical shifts that have happened from dieting, and that's the main win for me. Like, the other things are curious, and
For sure. Yeah.
yeah,
It's curiosity.
yeah.
I'm not even the same person I was when I started.
In what ways?
Just in the way of like how I treat it. I think it all started with how I treated my kids and my family. I became a very hard person in my previous life. I'm still living the life, but carpenter, hard worker, and then I just became hard. So like, if you didn't work as hard as me, if you weren't hard physically and mentally, then you were weak. And when I still repairing that relationship with my son of how I treated him for the first 4 years of his life, the first 5 years of his life. Because he still has a little bit of fear of that person that was there who was hard, like, and that transformation, the medicine, started with ayahuasca, but then the diet is what really changed me to be a softer human being. And that's why I continue. But yeah, you're right. The flying and that's all just dreaming, love, kind of playing in the medicine as well.
Well, I think it's like, yeah, it's definitely a beautiful aspect. And I see my own healing and my own development as a kind of a progression. It's gone from those things that you talked about, which are very much about the conditioning that we undergo in our particular environment. Like, I'm sure growing up in Calgary it was pretty hard, like that conditioning that we are subjected to culturally and in our educational institutions and in our family institutions and so on, like that's kind of rigid parts of ourselves that the medicine first goes at, right? And kind of like frees you from some of those ideas and at least gets you to look at them differently. And then you start to shed them, and that leads to more and more transformation in your life. It leads to better choices about well, like I said, like your relationships and your work and your self-care and so on. But then what I've noticed opening more and more now, year 16 in this, working with this tradition, is this desire for more of that wonder that you're talking about, like, and yeah, bringing in more of the art of life, that beauty and that special kind of something inexplicable,
Yeah, and just not putting limits on. I think the society we live in puts limits on our imagination first. And that's where the freeing of the medicine has been the biggest for me. Like, I'm a builder. I love building crazy things. And people tell me all the time, you can't build that. And just like, why? Why can't I? And why? And that's like, I see it in children. By the time they're 12 or 13, the whole imagination's gone because it's been like hammered out of them in some way. And the medicine frees, if you allow it to, it'll free that up, I find. But maybe it's just me that it freed up in because I love to dream. But yeah.
I think it's definitely a human, it's an aspect of being human. Like, that inner dream life is an important part of us. And yeah, if we're healing our bodies and we're healing our minds and healing our hearts, our dream life is a big part of that. Yeah. And like, actually, specifically in the Dieta practice, where the maestro or maestra plants the seed of consciousness of a particular teacher plant kind of inside of your inner world, and then sings to cultivate that, the development of that seedling, the kind of germination of it, the setting of roots and the growing of the seedling within you. They're singing to the different parts of you. They're singing to bring that medicinal power of the plant into your blood, into your bones, into your stomach, into your lungs, into your spine, into your brain, into your saliva, into all your organs, and also into your heart space, into your love, and into your dreams, specifically into your dreams. Mm-hmm. Because the dreaming is a special spiritual kind of, it's a special part of our spirituality. It's a special doorway into the spiritual realms, at least as the Shipibo people kind of appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And that the ayahuasca helps you to enter into that kind of dream space without needing to sleep.
The planting of the seed. Actually, I wanted you to talk about that, because that's kind of a question we have a lot, is like, there's the pre-ceremonial diet, mm-hmm. and people have a big confusion between that and the diet that we're doing.
Yeah.
And you explained it a little bit there. So it's the planting of a seedling of the energy of a specific plant.
Well, here we go. As Westerners, we're like, tell me exactly how it's engineered.
No. Yeah. Okay, go.
Yeah. And so that description, mm-hmm. it's a tale, right?
Yeah.
It's a way of relating with what's happening. But you could describe it like that. You could describe it in another way. You could describe it like the maestro calls on their relationship with that person, which is the Ebo of the teacher plant. We talked earlier about the owner of the teacher of the plant, the kind of mother of the plant, calls on them through their historical relationship and invites them to enter into relationship with you. You could describe it as their wind is being invited in, and the kind of person is being introduced to you. It doesn't mm-hmm. have to be like the idea of the seedling being planted. And in fact, in the technical understanding of exactly how a diet is opened, the words that the shaman will use to enact the diet, there is a concept to plant the diet, mm-hmm. And to kind of encourage it to grow. But there's also totally different ways of looking at how that initiation happens between the spiritual entities and the different parts mm-hmm. of you.
It's I grasped onto that first explanation because it's the very first vision I've ever had inside of someone was Miguel opening a diet for someone else.
And you saw something like that?
And I saw, it was more of like a freeing of space for it to live. It was more of a moving of energy so it could live inside or start in that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was the belly because I don't think I had vision that well, but it was in that torso kind of region.
Mm-hmm. Probably a good idea to share with people that in the Shipibo medicine practice, there are different types of practitioners. Okay, there's the Raomi, Raomi, which is a herbalist. Right. There's also, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's either, I think it's Bakaria or Barakia or something like that. Barakai, who is the midwife. There's the Tobi, who is the masseuse, or, mm-hmm. The person, the bone worker, let's say. and there is the Onanya or Onaya, who is the shaman. And so the Onaya is typically a Raumi as well, has that herbal knowledge, but the Onaya, who is the shaman, that special agent of access to the world of the spirits or the energetic world. And so that is the person who is dieting in this way that we're talking about, right? So you say you don't like the word spirits, and I get that with all the different religious kind of weirdnesses that abound. But for the people in the jungle, it's also important to note that they relate with living species as people.
Mm-hmm.
So when they talk about a spirit, it's not so much a disembodied notion, identity. It's like the person of the tree that they're, let's say, harvesting some medicine from. For the shamans in particular who have access to those visionary realms, they are having interactions with the person. And so the word spirit is the noun used to describe that person, right?
So Kaya is what
Kaya is spirit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's not the same. So they have the Kaya of each plant or each human being is
or animal
something you can or animal is something you can communicate with.
You can be in relationship with.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not just communicate. And this is where the dieta practice comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because to gain the benefits of understanding that the Shipibo people know that these teacher plants can give, then you need to live in a certain way, treat your body in a certain way, isolate in a certain way, so that the relationship can be its most active and healthy self, right? Mm-hmm. And so dieta, what does that mean? It means restrict food, right? Mm-hmm. Diet. But in this practice, the master plant dieta or the teacher plant dieta in the Shipibo tradition is specifically restrictions on what you can eat, but also restrictions on activities, like not being too social, no sexual activity, not being in stimulating environments. And if you don't do that, if you don't follow those restrictions, then they believe and they see in their experience that you can be like punished by the plant person and that it can turn out badly for you. It can actually it can make a person unwell or even endanger them. So, but if it's done well, and it's not only food and activity, lifestyle, it's also thoughts.
It's funny when you start the diet process, it's food and activity and then it's like, no, you have to be good in all. You have to be in. The best way for me is in straightness with everything, with your relations, with your thoughts, with what you're watching, and you can feel it. Like if you start to go off, it'll warn you a few times, and if you don't bring it back, it's almost like you lose. You're lost, and then you have to call someone to treat you and put you back in straightness.
Yeah, and so when people hear you saying that, they're probably wondering, well, how does it tell you?
Now in my dreams, at the start, it was just, and still, like, if I go to reach for the wrong piece of food, I'll get that. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like an immediate, like.
And it's an immediate. But when you first start, it's like you feel like shit after like my first couple diets, I would go out to see my friends. I've never really broken my food part or my um, sexual part. I've never really broken those things, but I'd go out with my friends and hang out, and they'd be drinking beer, and then I'd come home and I would be okay. And then that night I'd have a terrible sleep. And then the next few days you would feel off. And when you don't have anything entering your body that's not fairly healthy for you, you know that it's not something you ate or something else you did. So, but that's at the beginning. Now it's more like I know through intuition and through my diets.
Through your
or through my dreams.
dreams.
Through my dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, for me, it's similar. Like, in preparing to have this conversation with you today, I started researching some of the stuff that I've researched before, but I went a little bit further, and I was on the computer a lot. And so then last night I had a dream where I was in a car with Lucinda, and she turned around and said something to me that was kind of admonishing me. Lucinda is one of the maestras in the who works at Kaya Shobro, and who has worked a lot on my diets. And she was like admonishing me for, she said, you're too concave, which was interesting. Kind of like, I got the feeling like it was too like collapsed in. And then I had a vision in the dream of these people who had blue energy running through their veins into their heads. And it wasn't pleasant. It was kind of like studying and analyzing and being on the computer looking at this stuff is, the diets didn't like it. It was like a little warning. So it's like the more diets you do, there's more and more of these little kind of like, each one minuscule or microscopic little kind of adjustments that the plants are introducing into how you live and the choices that you make, right? And what's remarkable to me is that to have the best results from those relationships, we have to be in the sort of integrity that you described. How is that? How is that nature holds the wisdom for being in integrity? I mean, it's obvious, really, but we're talking about integrity in the spiritual sense, integrity in how you think about other people, whether you judge people or not. How is that a wisdom that lives inside plants? It's amazing and wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
There is such a thing as being in right relationship, and nature is the teacher.
Yeah, I mean, these teachings are all over the world as well. I just think the plants are better at it. Like to be in right relations. That's teachings of Jesus and Buddha and kind of all of them. But for me, the strength of the plants and the ability to like warn me before I've gone too far is really helpful. And then the other thing for diets for me is when I know I can't do something, it's kind of that like, there is no cheat days on these diets. It's not like other things that you choose to, like it working out or whatever. You can just skip a day, but on these diets, it's like you have to, and that makes it easier for my type of personality.
Yeah, in terms of like a way of life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it like what works for me at this point in my life, after previous years where I was dieting for really extended periods, but now I probably diet 3 times a year for about 6 to 8 weeks each time. And I agree. I have that same, it's kind of like an anchor that I can focus for this particular period of time, introduce discipline, to foster and develop a relationship with a miraculous presence from the natural world who teaches me things. And then I can take time after that practice of introducing the understandings into my day-to-day activities and relationships. And it's a way of life for me, you know. I find it very gives good support and good kind of direction for my life. Sometimes surprising, after I've done a diet and then you go into the integration phase, like once the diet has reached its maturity and then it's closed, this additional phase afterwards where you go into what we call integration, where it's a little different, I think, to how people think about integration after a powerful experience like an ayahuasca ceremony. This is like a longer, more drawn out kind of natural shifting that happens inside of you. Like we were talking about it the other day, right? This like wave of I don't know, like the embodiment of the understanding starts to come into your life. That's also a part of this tradition, Yeah.
And on those topics like judgment and forgiveness and the things that ayahuasca and definitely the diet start teaching you. When I explain these, like forgiveness, you're forgiving someone who's abused you or done something wrong to you, and I think about it in terms of like, well, how am I supposed to forgive that person? And it's almost like we're not forgiving them so they're free. It's more of a forgiveness, or I'm forgiving them so I can be free. And that's the same with judgment. Like when I judge people, usually it's something I see in myself that I'm judging in the other person that I don't like. So if you do those things, the plants have taught me, like, you just feel worse in your day-to-day life, on diet or not. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I feel like a central learning that has come to me through the practice of dieting is really similar. It's like at a certain point in my process with dieting and with the ceremonies, I found visions coming to me that were really clearly about other people's illnesses, about their issues. And that inspired in me a desire to learn, right? Become an apprentice. Like, okay, this information's coming to me. There's a reason for it. I need to learn how to help. But because of our conditioning in our society about what it means to learn and like acquire expertise, being so like linear and like ambitious, it's like we set goals, we set targets, and then we go towards them. We have to like put the accolades in place, and we're going to a place we imagine somewhere away from where we are.
And then there's a test.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of tests for sure. But my point was that what I got to with the natural unfolding of the diets was this understanding that going away from myself towards something else was not how I was going to be able to help people. The way that I could best respond to those visions that were coming to me and energies that I was becoming sensitive to was to keep focusing on becoming healthier and happier myself. Through prioritizing self wellness, that everything comes from there. Everything that comes from that central place, improving my relationships, making me less judgmental, making me more loving, making me more creative, making me more trusting, making me is not entirely correct, because it's like this invitation to become more, and then the choice is mine, These plants kind of like nudge you, right? They nudge you in a direction and say, hey, you kind of need to consider changing this, but it's up to you to do it. So I resonate with what you're saying there about it being like very much for your own benefit. But by benefiting ourselves, we thereby benefit our community, our family, our community, our society. If we're giving the best of ourselves, and it's not just a notion, it's actually a lived experience through the dieting practice.
Yeah, you start to see things in other people, and even outside of ceremonies, like you can see sadness and these things, and but all of that was learned in me, going into me and I don't know if I'm right or not, but I've had these visions lots of times. We are one conscious human, like we're one. So if I'm helping other people or see this, it's me I'm seeing it in. And to learn about how to treat that person is done by going in, not by going out in a way. Does that...
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
applied that like belief to my own learning, but it's an interesting kind of aspect. And I think like listening to you describe that, how it's like within you, is important to understand how this isn't like a religion.
No.
Actually, it's not cult-like either, or it shouldn't be. It's not like a set of beliefs that you have to sign up to and conform to. It's like find your own understanding through your own direct experience, and then bring us the beautiful gifts that you find within yourself. You know, us being humanity and the planet and the universe and everything. Like, it's a personal journey, and each one's path is unique. And the Shipibo understand that. They don't, in their culture, try to require the shamans and the maestros to all be the same. Not at all. You know?
They're not even... Yeah. Yeah. That is huge, right? Like...
Yeah. There are like themes of understanding, like, okay, if you want to get the best from these plants, you better not eat pork, you know, or red meat while you're in a diet, because otherwise you're going to get really sick and have a lot of dark visions. Or, you know, you better not be in conflict with people, because the plant doesn't like that stress and will amplify those sensations within you. You know, like there's these common themes and learnings, or like the diet might bring you a dream with a particular type of information, like police showing up in the dream, and the shaman understand, oh, we're all having the same sorts of dreams, this has a common meaning. But that doesn't then dictate that you all have to become the same maestro or the same like particular type of practitioner, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting, is outside of those core like sex, pork, and anger,
Dairy,
they don't really say much about what you can and cannot eat, or do, or but for me, I like the idea of like, I need to touch a stove to understand it's hot. It's like, so you guys could tell me everything, but I'm going to fail on my own. Regardless if you told me or not, I'm still going to try.
Yeah.
But I've seen the sickness that the sex caused by someone who I sat with, so I didn't have to go down that one. but the other ones is kind of too much salt, and then I noticed what it did and how quickly salt disconnected me from my plant.
Yeah, once you know it yourself, then you're often racing. Like when you start, you follow what you're advised to do, right? You want to know about a diet, so okay, they say no salt, no dairy, no red meat, no alcohol or other substances, no acidic foods, right? Like lemon, vinegar, dried fruits, things like that. In fact, you really limit your fruit to very simple selections of not too ripe, because that would make them very sweet. Apples, pears, and bananas. And then also no sugar, right? That those things are all too stimulating or will malogras, make the diet bad. But then you start to, you know, touch the boundaries there, make the odd mistake here and there, and as your sensitivity to the plant communicating with you through the dreams develops, you get your own understanding of it. You can develop it. And I think that what the maestros tell people in the beginning about how to follow a diet, depending on the teacher, is often a limited set of, you know, the really detailed understandings of how to best work with the plants, how to get the best from the relationship. you know? Like they don't say to you, for example, okay, don't read any books, or don't look on your phone, or don't talk to anyone. Maybe in some centres that really do the traditional way, yeah, they might do that, put you out in the jungle and you just don't interact with anyone and so on. But in most places where Westerners go, they're not saying that, right? But as you diet more and more, you notice, oh, I read that book and then I had not good dreams about the book. And if you don't read the books and you just stayed quiet, you have beautiful, amazing dreams where music comes to you and nature is revealing its wonders to you, you know? So you start to learn like that.
Also, we can't live those Shipibo lives. Like, we have to take these diets home with us, and we have to be able to do both in a way.
Yeah.
Or for me, I can't go down there for 3 months and take a proper Shipibo diet. But yeah, you learn along the way, and I that's what I love about the path the most, is there is no person telling me what I should or should not do. Yeah, for me, that's the best way of learning is this way.
Yeah.
Especially when you ask questions and they don't give you answers. That's my favorite learning, to the point where now I don't even ask questions anymore. It's like, why would you ask Arturo? Yeah, you have cold energy in your body.
That's what he's gonna say.
Yeah. Cold air. Okay. But I think that's where we come into play, is to give our small amount of knowledge to the Westerners, because when you first start, you do need more guidance, or kind of the bridge between the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
And I think we're dealing with a different kind of psyche, the Westerner's mind versus the indigenous mind, you know, a person who's grown in that totally potent natural environment versus the hyper-conditioned environment in which we grow up in. We have a different way of processing information. We have a different way of securing a sense of safety and of learning. Okay, we have innate ways which are the same, but we have different needs in how we enter into these fields of kind of study and learning. And like, thankfully, we have this amazing maestro with us, Arturo, who studied education, you know, at university, and has an interest in entering into our world. But even for him, he sometimes looks a little bit bemused or like bewildered by our questions and our need for understanding the details and the categories of what's happening, you know. Like, I think he sometimes is not able to really enter into that world with us. So that's where we come in to kind of bridge the worlds. But I like what you were saying about, for you, it's you love that there's nobody telling you what to do. There's nobody telling you how to think and how to be. It's freedom, right? It's about encouraging more freedom. And that's the beauty of this. When you go back to the history of the Shipibo people and why they're so special and amazing today, is because they maintained their freedom. Freedom was a big part of being able to survive in that really vigorous and intense natural environment that the Amazon is. You have to be free to move, you know, and free to follow your instincts and free to like react and adapt and change and follow your own truth, you know? And that's what I think is the heart of what we're embracing and kind of fostering within us through this relationship with the Shipibo tradition, is returning to us our freedom to follow our own hearts, our own minds. You know?
It's funny, when I first started, you hear the word liberation, and when I first got into it, it's like, oh yeah, liberate me from the society. liberate me. And it's not, it's a liberation from your own mind, from your own prison, from your own, we live in this constricted society, but most of your jail is your own mind.
Absolutely.
And that's the freedom. That's the liberation I'm looking for now. I thought it was society, but I'm part of the society. Like, the people make it up. They make up the society. So you have to liberate yourself first.
Absolutely.
From yourself.
We're here in this existence at this time on Earth. We're here part of this system that we're all a part of in order to, have food and shelter and be able to take care of our children. We're part of it, right? And I agree with you absolutely. Like, it's not a perfect situation. There's big aspects of this system that are really unwell, and by extension that make us unwell. But I haven't had the outcome from dieting for more than 15 years say to me, leave and get out. It's been about restoring harmony as much as possible, from within myself, and moving differently. The system also can really support you. It can really facilitate creativity and connectivity and learning, So, I have the same sense that it's not liberation away from the reality that we're in. It's liberation to choose your way in it. With like I don't know, deep goodness, like a deep sense of that that you're moving in the right direction for yourself.
That's the biggest thing the plants have taught me. Or when I get a teaching, it's different than when you learn like a math problem. It's like a remembering almost, or you just know, or you remember, or I don't know how to explain it the best way, but these teachings are like, once you get one, it's like, I get it I get it completely. I understand completely.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so compelling for people who start to have these experiences to continue with it. Your relationship with the plants and how you come to that certainty of the significance of a vision or of a learning or an instruction or something that you feel that you're getting from the diet. This is like a quality of you, Nick, and how I do that, and how I interpret things, and how I've developed my confidence in the meaning of certain things is very particular to me, Rebecca. Like this is how I interpret things, and it's really curious. It's really interesting observing different people and what they do with what the plants bring to them, because it's definitely not guaranteed that each person will have insights and take those insights down a path of greater harmony for themselves and for their lives. They can take it into some really weird places, or they might not even see it. They might just kind of be blocked from it, or see it but not recognize its significance. And I think that the past experiences that we've had in our life and how we've dealt with them and the character that we've developed within ourselves has a big part to play there. How we go in the journey of growing our spiritual understandings, our self-understandings, when working with these plants. It's, you have freedom of choice.
Big time. But I had that calling right from the beginning to diet. As soon as someone had mentioned to me, I got curious and started digging into what it is and how it is. But the only way to know anything about these diets is to take your first one, I guess.
Yeah, and then your second, and then your third. I think for me, it was my third diet where I finally was like, oh, okay, I'd had experiences in the first diets, but I just couldn't grasp onto them as being significant for some reason. They were just like things
Yeah.
that happened. I didn't like kind of grasp that, oh, that's a conversation happening with a plant person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a happening. That's a relationship. There's like, okay, and they started to actually really get it in a kind of
And now, when you're on diet, is that through your prayer or through your quiet time, or is it mostly in your dreams that you connect with these, or is it all of them?
it's all of them. So actually, I was just sharing with a friend the other day that when I'm praying, which is an interesting thing, we should talk a whole nother session about praying because
Yeah.
that didn't really come up today. But that's another thing that was woken up by the diets is praying. But when I am praying, I do have visions of sometimes if I'm praying for other people, I will have visions of them without any stimulant, without any, medicine. It's just the diets kind of giving me information through the connection. Yeah, and that kind of like greater and greater sensitivity or like, like kind of information, connectivity that comes with diet after diet is definitely very compelling. Like that's something. But in terms of deciding when to diet again, I don't know how to describe it now. It's just become so natural to me, the flow of entering diet, closing diet, integrating. I just kind of know. I see and feel the processes of change, and I just know when it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have a work factor too, like going down and facilitating the retreats. I want to diet while I'm there if I can, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So you're not really going to walk down the path of long diets anymore? Like how?
Well, the longest diet I ever did was 15 months, and that was about 10 years ago, I'd say.
Okay.
And I did other diets that were about a year, 10 months, 6 months, a few times, like lots of really long diets, and they were incredible, very transformative. But now I feel like my body, and I'm in my 50s, it's quite challenging to go for a couple of months without more nurturing foods. So yeah, the diets have been 6 to 8 weeks. But Arturo has said to me, with this number of diets that I have, I don't have to do great big long ones to continue the growth of the diets and clean them up and, put them in alignment. Just short diets is okay. But maybe at some point it'll feel okay to do a longer one again. I think it depends a lot on your body and on yourself, But so maybe this is a good point to just mention to people that we are running a support program for dieters, new or experienced, from the end of January through to Easter this year. So people who are looking for support in the form of group chats and receiving some teachings about the different stages of diet are able to join up to that program. And there's more information on our website at kayashobo.com about that program. Well, it was a real pleasure talking with you, Nick. I really enjoyed our talk about dieta.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insights and for helping me on my way and hopefully being able to help people in the future.
It's really sweet of you. It's fun for me talking with you about this stuff. And we'll have some other facilitators from Kaya Shobo join in on some of our other sessions in the future so that folk can get to know the rest of the crew.
Can't wait.